This is a story about the house next door. The one with the overgrown garden. The one where the lights flickered at exactly 3:17 a.m. every single night. The one nobody in the neighborhood talked about. Not because they were told not to, but because talking about it made it worse. I moved into that house in October of 2019. Rent was suspiciously cheap. The landlord couldn't get rid of it fast enough. He handed me the keys, didn't shake my hand, and drove away without looking back. I should have known then. The house was a two-story Victorian in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon, built in 1923. The kind of house with creaky floorboards, narrow hallways, and a basement that smelled like wet earth and old copper. My name is Daniel. I was 28 at the time, software engineer, working remotely. I needed a quiet place to focus on a big project. The real estate listing said charming fixer-upper with character. What it didn't say was that the previous tenant left in the middle of the night, left everything behind. Furniture, clothes, even a half-eaten meal on the kitchen table. The landlord had cleaned most of it out, but there were remnants. A child's drawing pinned to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a sun. A pair of women's shoes by the front door, neatly placed, like someone was planning to come back for them. I didn't think much of it. People leave things behind when they move. That's life. The first night was uneventful. I set up my mattress in the bedroom, plugged in my laptop, and fell asleep to the sound of rain on the windows. Normal. Comfortable. Almost. At 3:17 a.m. I woke up. Not because of a noise, not because of a dream. I woke up because the air in the room had changed. It felt huidor, like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm, but there was no storm coming. The rain had stopped. The house was silent. I lay there for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling. Then I noticed something. The light on my smoke detector was blinking. Not the normal intermittent blink. A rapid, frantic pulse, like a heartbeat. I got up, checked the detector. Fresh battery. No issues. I went back to bed. The blinking stopped. I told myself it was nothing. The first week was mostly quiet. I worked during the day, ordered food, went for walks in the evening. The neighborhood was peaceful. Older folks mostly. A few families. Everyone was friendly but distant. Polite, but with a wall.
I mentioned the house to my neighbor, Margaret. She lived on the other side, a woman in her 70s with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. "Oh, you're in that house," she said. Not a question, a statement, like she already knew. "Yeah, just moved in. It's nice. Quiet." She nodded slowly. "It is quiet," she said. Then she looked at me with something that might have been concern. "Does it bother you?" "The quiet?" I laughed it off. "I'm a programmer. I love quiet." She didn't laugh. That night the sound started. It began with footsteps. Not loud, not dramatic. Just the soft, rhythmic padding of bare feet on hardwood. Coming from the second floor, I was on the first floor. There was no second floor above me. The house was a single story with an attic, but the sound was definitely from above. I lay in bed listening. The footsteps moved from one end of the house to the other. Slow, deliberate, like someone was pacing. Back and forth, back and forth. Then they stopped. Right above my bed. I held my breath. Silence. Then, so faintly I might have imagined it, a whisper. A woman's voice, saying something I couldn't quite make out. Something that sounded like, "Can you see me?" I jumped out of bed, turned on every light in the house, and sat in the kitchen until sunrise. I told myself it was the old house settling, pipes expanding, wind in the attic. But there was no wind that night. After the second week, I started to adjust. The sounds continued, but I trained myself to ignore them. The footsteps, the whispers, the occasional sound of a door opening and closing on the upper floor. I threw myself into work. My project deadline was approaching. I needed to ship the new feature by November. The pressure was good. It kept my mind occupied. One evening, while cleaning out a closet in the hallway, I found something. A stack of papers, old and yellowed, tucked behind a shelf. Children's drawings, dozens of them, crayon and marker on construction paper. They were all the same. A house, a woman standing in front of it, and something else, something dark, a figure, tall, thin, with no face. Just a black shape standing in the corner of every drawing, in every room, in every scene. The child had drawn it over and over, in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the bathroom, always in the corner, always watching. On the back of one drawing, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Mama says not to look at him." But I can't stop.
I felt cold, not from the temperature, from something deeper, something primal. I put the drawings in a box and shoved them back in the closet. That night, I double-checked the locks on every door and window. At 3:17 a.m., the smoke detector started blinking again, frantic, desperate, and this time I heard the whisper clearly. She can't see me anymore. I should have moved out, I know that now, but I was stubborn and curious and maybe a little bit in denial. I started researching the house's history, public records, old newspaper articles, local archives. The house was built in 1923 by a man named Thomas Whitfield. He was a carpenter. He built it for his wife Eleanor and their daughter Lily. They were a happy family by all accounts. Until 1931, that's when Eleanor started seeing things. According to a police report from October 1931, Eleanor Whitfield called the authorities multiple times, claiming there was a man in her house, a tall man with no face. She said he stood in corners. She said he whispered to her daughter at night. She said he was getting closer. The police found nothing, no intruder, no signs of forced entry. They suggested she see a doctor. Eleanor refused. She became withdrawn, paranoid. She stopped leaving the house. She stopped speaking to neighbors. She kept Lily home from school. Then, in December 1931, Eleanor disappeared, not died, disappeared. One day she was there, the next she wasn't. Thomas came home from work and found the house empty. Lily was sitting on the kitchen floor, drawing, over and over, the same figure, the same dark shape in the corner. "Where's Mama?" Thomas asked. Lily pointed to the corner of the room. "She's still here," she said. "She just can't leave." Thomas and Lily moved out that week. He never came back. The house was sold, then sold again, then again. 7 different families in 90 years. None stayed longer than 2 years. I was the 8th. I needed to see the attic. It was a Saturday afternoon, broad daylight. I found the trap door in the hallway ceiling, pulled the cord, and the ladder unfolded with a groan of rusted hinges. The attic was small, low-ceilinged, dusty, the kind of space that collects silence. There was a single window at the far end, covered in grime. Light filtered through, casting a sickly yellow glow on the wooden floor, and in the center of the attic, a chair, a wooden rocking chair facing the window, still, patient, like it had been waiting.
I stepped closer. The floorboards creaked under my weight. The air grew colder with each step. On the seat of the chair, a photograph, black and white, a woman holding a child. The woman was smiling. The child was looking at something behind the camera, something that made her eyes wide with, not fear, recognition. I picked up the photograph. On the back, in faded ink, Eleanor and Lily Whitfield, 1930. My hands were shaking. I don't know why. It was just a photograph. Just an old chair in an old attic. But the temperature had dropped so low I could see my breath. And behind me, from somewhere I couldn't identify, I heard a sound. A rocking chair, gently swaying. I turned around. The chair was still, hadn't moved, but the air around it shimmered, like heat rising from asphalt. And for just a moment I saw her. A woman, transparent, faded, standing by the window, looking out at something I couldn't see. Her mouth moved. No sound came out, but I read her lips. "Help me." Then she was gone. I moved out the next day. I didn't pack much, just my laptop, some clothes, and the photograph. I left the rest. I called the landlord and told him I was breaking the lease. He didn't ask why. He just said, "I understand." I rented an apartment downtown. Small, noisy, full of life. The opposite of that house. But I couldn't let it go. Eleanor's face. Lily's drawing. The figure in the corner. I hired a medium. I know how that sounds. But I was desperate. Her name was Cassandra. She came to the house with me one evening. We stood in the living room, and she closed her eyes. The temperature dropped, the lights flickered. And then she spoke. Not in her own voice, in someone else's. "I am Eleanor. I have been here for 90 years. I cannot leave. He won't let me." "Who?" I asked. "Who won't let you?" "The man in the corner. He came when the house was built. He was here before me. He'll be here after. He feeds on loneliness, on fear, on the space between the living and the dead. What does he want?" A pause. Then, everything. Cassandra opened her eyes. She was pale, shaking. "We need to leave," she said. "Now." I did. I never went back. The house is still there. Still empty. Still for sale. The listing hasn't changed in 2 years. Charming fixer-upper with character. Nobody's buying.
And at 3:17 a.m., if you stand outside on the sidewalk and look up at the second-floor window, you might see a light. faint, flickering, like a smoke detector blinking. And if you listen very carefully, you might hear a whisper, "She can't see me anymore." That's my story. I don't expect you to believe all of it. I'm a software engineer. I believe in code, in logic, in things I can explain, but some things can't be explained. Some houses hold on to their past like a fist, and some figures never leave the corners they haunt. If you're ever house hunting, and the rent seems too good to be true, and the landlord won't shake your hand, walk away. Some houses aren't meant to be lived in, they're meant to be survived. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. And if you hear footsteps above you tonight, don't look up.